This is a comparison between the Syma X5C and the JJRC H8C. They're pretty similar. This one looks quite a bit smaller because I haven't got the prop guards on it. Both of them are relatively, well, I say relatively, they're really easy to fly. I think the Syma X5 is a bit more stable initially, and took off straight out of the box. And this was the first one we'd actually had and flown, and we got used to it really quick. I mean, we're pretty novice and new to this, and although we've had to go with helicopters and whatever in the past, not always that successfully, to be fair, we had no problems with this. And practicing indoors for a bit before we got outside, and I think initially flying at distance and getting it to go round in circles and bits and pieces was a bit of a challenge. I think it's just time, and as you practice with it, you get much better quite quickly. I think the other thing with it as well, it's $55. It's nothing really in comparison to what you can pay for some models and any other form of hobby. So even if you lose a few of them or damage them or break them, it's not the end of the world. Run through a couple of these before you start spending several £100s or several £1,000s or dollars, whatever currency you work in, on a bigger, decent quadcopter. So, what are the differences between the two? Well, firstly, I think my preference has got to be with the H8C, and the reason being is the propellers. One thing, these ones on the Syma screwing down through the top. So when we were learning and when we were looking up on YouTube, one of the things it was talking about was balancing the blades now, and various other mods that you can do. So we tried to balance these. I bought a balancer, but because of the way that this screws in through the top, the bottom of it where the screw goes through the shaft is too small and thin, so you can't get the balancer in. Now, we managed to have a go on a screwdriver, but I don't know whether it's a perfect way to do it, and in reality, did we notice any difference? Not really, because it is exceptionally stable for, as I say, for such a small light machine. I don't think you notice that much difference. The only thing it does help with is the jello effect you get on the camera, and jello is almost like a wavy. If you've not seen it, it's again, if you go onto YouTube and search for jello video, you can see it, and it's almost where this is vibrating and it creates a sort of jelly-like effect on the video, so that can help with that. But to be fair, we never really noticed any jello on this at all. And the other thing is, some of the mods that you can do on the JRC that you can't do on the Syma, and one of them is to replace, there's a brass bush goes through here which you can't get off. You have to disassemble the whole thing, and I'm not sure how or if it can be done. But with this, the H8C, you can take off the propellers by a little screw on the side here, so you've got a wider shaft, so actually you can balance these up if you want to. The other thing is, inside here are two brass bushes, one at the top and one at the bottom. Once you take this screw out and the propeller off, then you can remove this driver and push out using a screwdriver, pushing out the two brass bushes, and replace them with ball bearings, which should help the life of your motor, and it should also help the life of the battery. Well, not the life of the battery not so much, but the flying time. Even the 1 or 2 minutes, all makes a difference. So that's one of the reasons why I think the H8C is a little bit better. One of the downsides, or one of the benefits, or the things better with the 5C is the legs, or the support. And when you look at this support, it's quite low. The centre of gravity in this is quite low, so when it lands, it lands quite cleanly. With the 8C, it's much higher. So sometimes what happens is, when it lands, it'll tilt over. Now, it's no big deal if you've got the guards on; it doesn't really damage it. But it used to happen quite a bit. So what we've done is we've bent them out and held them and reduced it. So now we've reduced the centre of gravity and made it much more stable, so it doesn't tip over as often as it did before, unless we crash it, of course, which happens on occasion. So that's it really. I think the one other thing, oh yeah, the lights. Now with the lights on the, I've not got a battery in there, I've got a battery in this one. Yeah, this is the lights. The lights on this, you don't have to go away very far before you can't see it, and they're pretty useless, to be fair, especially in the daytime. In the evening a bit better, but still quite not that bright and not that easy to see. On the other hand, the H8C have got really bright lights. They've got bright blue lights on the side. In fact, let me show you. Okay, so let's just switch. There you go. So as you can see, the lights are much brighter, and even in the day you can see the red is the back of the quad, and the blues at the sides. And even in the day you can see it much better. And we've flown as well in the early evening, which is the best time to fly, we found, because the wind is at its lowest, and as it's just getting dusk, you can still see it, but the lights make it so much easier. And we've also tried flying in the dark, although that is a bit more difficult. But again, you can see it, and you can see which orientation is much easier in the dark and in the sort of twilight hours than you can in the day. The camera on this one as well pops off. You can literally just clip the camera off if you want to, and you might give it an extra minute or so as flying, the extra less weight. And you could also take the props off if you want less weight, and it should also help you, give you a little bit longer to fly. Although what we did is we just bought a load of batteries. I think we got about 15 batteries, so we charge them all up, and we just keep changing them as and when, and we don't find that's much of an issue. I think sometimes we're getting 7 or 8 minutes out of flight, which is, although it doesn't sound like a lot if you've not flown, it's quite a long time. So I think that's it on the two. Our preference, as I said, I'm pretty sure is the H8C. Although I do like the controls. We've done actually a mod on here. If you open the casing out, and again, if you look on YouTube, there is plenty of tutorials on how to do it. But we literally burnt a hole in the bottom, and brought the aerial out. And it does make a difference, quite a difference. We did the same mod, not the same mod, in other words, to try and get better distance on the Syma by extending the antenna in here. The other one's really quite small, and we actually then just joined a piece to it. Again, tutorials are on YouTube, plenty of them, on how to extend the range on a Syma. And we did that. Didn't notice too much of a difference on the Syma, to be fair, but it was worth doing. We had to mess about, and it's all about a learning curve, isn't it? So there you go. That's our idea on the ideas and views on the Syma and the JRC. Post any comments, and if you've got any questions, ask, and we'll see what we can do to help.